Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
This is Nate.
Yeah, he's back. Nate joins the Two Timers Club. I was thinking about that over the last couple of days. It's now you. It's Nate. It's now you and friend of the show James Nahikian are so far. Coming back on the show a second time. We have Nate Glusich joining us for this entire show. It's going to be a very heavily sports show, if it's not obvious, but what we have going on here. Nate, how you doing? Welcome back.
Well, happy to be officially the second person of the Two Timers Club. James Nahikian, I mean, that's high praise. That's a pretty standout club there. So hopefully I do it justice, and he welcomes me with open arms.
Absolutely. I've been waiting since we fired up the Zoom call here to ask about the elephant in the room. Casen, did I miss a dress code for this week?
I was kind of wondering.
We have not talked. Just want to let people know we have not even mentioned it yet. Like when we were queuing up here, what's going on with this, man?
I wanted to dress for the occasion, and I thought that the solemn moment deserved that, and so I am here recognizing the sad death of the ACC as a relevant conference. So I hope that we can all pay our respects and maybe do a little bit of a eulogy later on for the Atlantic Coast Conference.
That ended up being way darker than I thought the bit was going to be. That is not what I thought. I thought you were going to take a direction of like, hey, this is like our reaction to the college football playoff. So yeah, we'll dress for the occasion. Well, as I say that with an ACC school over my shoulder. Yes, we're going to talk about, we're actually flipping this script here. Nate is with us. We're going to discuss, we've been waiting to get our reactions out here for the end of the college football regular season. And of course, the highly, whether it's controversial or not, we'll discuss, but we do have our 14 playoff, and we're going to honestly probably spend most of the time about college football. We are going to get into some NFLs, and of course, we're going to bring you of the weeks. But I have a lot to say on this topic, but I really don't want to start. So whoever wants to, Casen, why don't you table set for us, and we'll go from there.
I'll set the scene here. So over the last weekend, we had the conference championships, and so we saw some good games. I know I was really excited to see the Oregon-Washington rematch. That was a great game. And then there was, some other duds like the Michigan-Iowa game. But we had the conference championships that led into the selection show on Sunday, which obviously, as everyone knows by now, the 14 playoff is Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama, with Florida State at 5, just barely missing out.
Yes, it is. And obviously the kicker controversy that I'm sure anyone who consumes our show knows is essentially we, for the first time ever, had an undefeated conference champion in a Power 5 conference not make the top 4 in what is last year for the 14 playoff. I feel like that's been lost in translation at some point during the conversation of this week. What were your guys' initial reactions? Anyone can start. I know there's been some time now, and it's going to be Friday by the time this show goes out.
I'll just say, I can't believe they did it. And by that, I mean the College Football Playoff Committee. I can't believe they actually let an undefeated Power 5 conference champion not in. Like that baffled me. I mean, yes, are they injured? I mean, I could see it, but like they still went undefeated. Regardless of who was on the team, they still went undefeated. So it was definitely surprising that they went and did it. They went and did the thing that nobody thought was ever going to happen in a 4-team. Is like, if you're undefeated and you win your conference, and it's a pretty high up conference, you're in. But they went and did it. So that was my big shocker. So
Jason.
Yeah, I think here's my thing, and I wasn't, surprised at all, because I mean, you had Kirk Herbstreit and other ESPN people out there basically saying this was probably going to happen. I mean, like that's I think what people, particularly the Florida State fans, are really upset about, is that like ESPN, which if you don't know, basically runs the playoff, that they were basically behind the whole conversation over does Florida State deserve to be in? Like they were the ones driving that conversation. And so then when, on Sunday afternoon, when the rankings came out and they were like, oh, how could they leave out this undefeated team? You guys were the ones that were starting the conversation. Like what are you talking about?
You know a conversation has left the bounds of reality when we have senators and future candidates for the White House going at each other to like encourage this Florida State to go after. It's something insane has happened. When we start to see headlines like that immediately, immediately when I saw that, I was just laughing hysterically. I was like, yes, it's the latest one of like these horrendous things where it's like when billionaires are suing, it's like, stuff like that. I'll get my initial reaction. I was more surprised to see Texas jump in there. I was in a group text with some friends from the Pittsburgh area back home. And really the biggest debate we were having all morning wasn't really about Florida State at all. If anything, that was a non-story to us. I was sitting there thinking, okay, Alabama's definitely going to be in there because Casen, as you know, I sat here right here on this show like 5 shows ago, and I said this is one of those years where Alabama comes out of nowhere and wins a national championship. It just is, because I just saw the track with it. I'm like, they're going to go in. Georgia hasn't really played anyone. People are going to make that argument. I don't really believe that, but they haven't played someone like Alabama. Alabama wins, of course, gets in the playoff. I was thinking the whole time.
For what it's worth, Georgia's schedule has gotten a lot better than what it looked on paper to begin the year.
Right.
I mean, they soundly beat a really good Missouri team, and they killed Ole Miss, I think. So I mean their schedule wasn't bad. So hats off to Bama.
In hindsight, that being the case. But I was sitting there thinking, honestly, guys, I was thinking, okay, it's probably going to be like Michigan, Washington, maybe Alabama at 3, and Florida State at 4. That's honestly what I thought, in Texas at 5. That's actually what I thought was going to happen. I was like, oh, if I was doing this, that's what I'd pick. And when they put Texas in there at 3, I was like, man, there's one reason Texas is in the playoff, because no one would talk about Texas's one loss at all. They lost to a pretty subpar Oklahoma team. No one talked about that in the slightest. I don't know if you guys saw any conversation.
That's a really good point. A really good point.
It baffled my mind. I'm like, is everyone forgetting who the one loss is for Texas? Because I said this to someone. In a world where we're trying to pick 4 teams and like everyone has impressive wins, you have to look at the losses, because there's like 4 of them. There's like 3 or 4. Who has the worst loss? And to me, the worst loss was Texas to Oklahoma, but then people pointed out, Alabama's one loss is to Texas. And I'm like, okay, so Texas is in there because, yes, they won the Big 12. It's because they beat Alabama and Alabama won the SEC championship. That is why they put Texas in there.
I feel like thinking about it now, I feel like they both helped each other out in the fact that, Texas did beat Alabama, but then with Texas blowing out their conference championship game, winning it pretty decisively, I think that also then helped Alabama, who also won their conference, but their only one loss was to Texas, who blew out their conference champion. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they both helped each other out along the way. And like Alabama winning their conference, beating number 1 Georgia, that helped push Texas. Like, well, Texas must be pretty good if they have their one, like if Alabama's one losses to them. So I feel like in a way, hand in hand, they both out and pushed them in.
I also think that, like, I mean, I guess I'm going to contradict what I'm going to say here in a second, but I think maybe they forgave the Oklahoma loss because they annihilated Oklahoma State, who beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so like by the transitive property, they sort of avenged that, I guess, if you want to say that. I think the larger point here is that the conversation was never like they were talking on Sunday all about, how could you put in Alabama and leave out Texas? If Texas beat them, but the conversation is not about who do you put in, Bama or Texas. The conversation is who do you put in, Texas or FSU? Because you're looking at a one-loss conference champion that had a very mid schedule and almost lost to some pretty bad teams. And then you have FSU, who went undefeated, won their conference, and I mean, they had some pretty good road wins against SEC teams, and it's just like I don't get how Texas gets in over that. I get the Bama argument. It's just like the Texas argument is, I think, the problem. And so if you're gonna say the games don't matter and leave out an undefeated Power 5 champion, then why don't the games matter enough to like excuse the Texas loss for Bama and say, okay, like Texas, you're like, that's not a good enough win, because we all know that Bama team is not the Bama team that's playing in December. Like that was a very different team with a very different offense that is now fixed and much better. Like I don't get how you can sit here and say in December that them beating Alabama is some impressive feat when Alabama almost lost to USF. Like that was a very bad Alabama team to begin the season, and they fixed it. I
can hear Florida State fans saying, "Yeah, so we should have been in instead of Alabama." Like,
can I throw a new hat in the ring?
Yeah.
Ratings. Are they terrified of what happened last year with TCU?
Yes,
all the way.
That is 100%. That is 100%. Because the only reason for this playoff to be the playoff is to have two super evenly matched semifinals.
Yeah.
Because if you put in Bama against Washington and then Michigan against a mediocre FSU squad with a third string or backup quarterback, like those are two blowout semifinals. Like those are not going to be good. And so this was a playoff designed for matchups, designed for two good games.
And we also, I mean, you guys have seen the sound bites like I did. I thought it was pretty brazen and pretty blunt that the committee was like, listen, it's the four best teams, not necessarily the four most deserving. And personally, I think the playoff committee has always essentially done that in its 10-year brief existence. But the big thing I'll say here is, let me just raise my hand and say, I think the committee 100% got this right. It is possible to both, one, think that, and also be sick to death for Florida State fans. I mean, I'm an ACC fan, and I think that they made the right decision. Which also, we'll get to the ACC argument or down the road here, casing the conversation, but that's, I just wanted to say that back to, say that bluntly to you guys and everything. And it's the TCU situation. I mean, I sent like a TikTok to Casen this morning, Nate, that was something along the lines of, was this really done for ratings? It's like, look, you don't need to be a genius or a conspiracy theorist to figure that out. That's obviously what happened here. They said, we are not doing TCU again. We are not having our shareholders and everyone's look up and see a national championship that is 65, almost 70-0 in this again. One thing I will say to you guys, though, is it's kind of interesting how in these 10 years of this 14 playoff, there's one of the three games is a dud, almost always. I just think now we've shifted to a place where they're trying their best, at least for this last go around, for all three to be good. But
right. I even saw something today is like, if Michigan ends up winning, no matter what, there's going to be a rematch next year of the national championship.
Rematch in, what do you mean?
Because Michigan week 3 next year plays Texas, and then week 6 plays Washington.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just saw it today.
That's fascinating.
Kind of baffling that there will, if Michigan wins, no matter who wins the other game, there will be a rematch next year.
I got to tell you guys, I did kind of bust out laughing. Like Texas pops up at number 3, and I was like, oh my goodness, Florida State's going to be left out. That was like my initial thing. And I said, and if they're not, I would be shocked. And then it's Alabama. And then within, I don't know how this got out so quickly or how they even let this leak or whatever. Within 5 minutes, the reaction of Michigan seeing Alabama across the other side of them was instantly on Twitter. And I thought, who leaked this without there being media in the room? This is such a bad look. And it was like kind of coming from Michigan people. I'm like, who put this out? This is such a bad, it's just hilarious, but it's also such a bad look. I don't know. And I don't blame a single one of those guys for reacting that way. Like, Alabama, all right. Like, people were like, oh, like, look, the guys are excited. I'm like, one of the guys literally got up and like sighed, like he was like beside himself. The other thing that they showed, I've never seen this before, you guys, but I was shocked that they showed the Florida State reaction. because that's like the one we never get. There's never a camera running in the like locker room or wherever they're watching for the team that's left out and devastated.
Well, I think they always
that.
have the camera,
Yeah,
but I don't think they always show it.
They showed it though. I was like, oh wow, that's like.
Or maybe they actually had the cameras there because there was a number of teams that could have, like there were 3.
That's true.
Alabama, Georgia, or Florida State. No one.
Yeah. If I remember, the teams that like are usually 5 or 6 don't really think they're going to be in. And so it's just like they have people there in case, but they don't really have parties. Like this was, I think, one of the bigger ones where it was like they really thought they were going to be in because they, had the resume to warrant it.
I remember
on paper anyway.
You guys remember the very first one of these when TCU was the 5th team out? And I just remember they did have a reporter there of someone because they thought that TCU had a really good chance. And it's like, well, we don't have any cameras rolling, at least in there right now. But I did just see about like 100 pizzas just dropped off for that. So clearly the team is all in one spot. And then when TCU didn't get in, I just remember roommates at the time, one of which was actually friend of the show, James, was like, oh no, are they going to show the TCU room? And they never did. And that's all I could think of when they showed the Florida State reaction. I was like, oh wow, that's devastating. And I laugh because it was humorous that they actually made the decision to do that. But I also like at the same time felt bad. I was like, well, I mean, this is what happens, guys.
Now here's the thing that the committee needs to like actually like acknowledge is that there are other things that come into play with this that are not just like, oh, okay, they didn't get in, because I think that on paper they would have gotten killed by Michigan or whatever, but not to be like so focused on one thing. But Mike Norvell, I don't know what his contract is, but I saw Elko's contract at A&M that he just got, and I think if he makes the playoff, he gets like a $1 million bonus. And so I don't know what Mike Norvell's contract is, but I would imagine he's probably missing out on $1 million at least for not making the playoff.
That's
wow.
So I mean,
it's interesting you say that now, thinking next year they go to a 12-team playoff. So if Texas A&M can be a top 12 team, Elko's making just a quick, easy $1 million.
They made the contract. They made that contract knowing it would be in a 12-team playoff environment. So they're prepared to pay him $1 million additionally every year.
Money. That's that Texas money.
Because he does have a much lower base. I think he's making like annually like almost half of what Jimbo was making, but it's just laden with incentives to get to that point.
Yeah, they learned.
So it's like $1 million for SEC championship, $1 million for playoff. Yeah.
So I do want us to predict what we think is going to happen in the playoff, but I want to get into this ACC conversation first because literally we have to for the whole bit of you wearing a suit right now, Casen, to an attend a funeral, which again so morbid. I did not see that coming in any way. But we got to talk about it because I share an alma mater with all 3 of you guys, but one of mine is also Syracuse, and it makes you think this is why Florida State and Clemson lobbied so hard to try and get out of the ACC. And if anything, you gave them every like incentive and fuel to the fire to probably start. I am totally somewhat about to see this offseason. To you guys, I just want to pose the question: can't you see a Pac-12 thing about to happen to the ACC? I mean, I say this even though they just added 3 teams, like in 2 of them from the Pac-12.
So we had this conversation on the show.
We did
when they added Stanford, SMU. I don't even remember. I don't even remember the conversation. But yeah, when they added Stanford and SMU,
SMU, and Cal.
The conversation was that they had to maintain a number of teams in order to not forfeit their media deal. And so by doing that, they'll stay over the number of teams with Clemson and Florida State leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So that was made with the assumption that they are going to be leaving at some point very soon.
Yes. And if you guys both just assume they're going to go SEC.
I mean, you would think.
Because the Big Ten's already like too big next year. So
But the other question though is like what I said a couple weeks ago. I mean, in order to at least keep it remotely, like to keep the numbers kind of down a little bit, I mean, at what point does it become like not worth it to keep programs like Vandy and stuff in the SEC?
Right.
Like, I mean, baseball can only carry the conference so much.
Yeah.
I mean, Vandy is doing nothing with every other sport,
and you did
there's
say
no
that,
reason for them to be in there.
You said that a week ago, and Nate, I followed up with, and I said, I mean, the middle teams in the Big Ten are about to become more insignificant than they ever are, at least in football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole middle of the Big Ten beyond the teams at the top. I mean, you really think you're going to hear about, shout out Bowling Green, going to the same bowl game, but you really think like the Minnesotas of the world? I say that because Quick Lane Bowl, BG is going to play Minnesota.
Yeah.
Shout out. But yeah, I almost heard I also heard someone say this. Is this all going to consolidate to a point where splitting within the conference happens again, like in 10 years? Like where it's like, okay, you're going to have the Big Ten, you're going to have like the Big Ten West and the Big Ten East, which essentially is just a Pac-12 again and stuff like that. I was like, see, I can see something like that happening because as we've talked about, all three of us as friends and also just on the show, I think that the travel strain this is going to put on every other sport beyond football is going to become a problem in college athletics with this new alignment quite literally immediately. It's going to be an issue. And I think it's going to have more negative effects on these programs than some of them think. I really do. That being said, I will say, man, this would have been a good year for the 12-team playoff. That needs to be said.
It would have been a good one. It would have been a good one, but it's also a good one to end on, I think, with the 4. So
yeah. Now I do have a question for you guys, and this is just a thought experiment. You guys have both heard me say this before in various different contexts. You guys know that one of the hills I will die on is, and people are not going to like what I'm about to say, I think, the BCS, in my opinion, was every single year the BCS existed, the best team won the national championship. That is a hill I will die on because no, it wasn't the SEC every year. It was a lot of years, but there was a time when, yes, that was just the best conference. People forget Florida State won the last ever BCS national championship. I just think that because it's now done by humans, the controversy is that much worse. It's almost like I wish we would put, like with our technology now, a new BCS style system in place and then just take the 12 teams out of that. Just so that, I don't know, just because you invite human beings, you invite incredible opportunity for influence and corruption and all that stuff.
Here's how it should go now. Chat GPT, give me the 4 best teams right now. Pick it, go. Whatever Chat GPT says is what it goes. Just get AI involved because it's going to happen soon. It's just going to go back, and it's going to be an ever evolving circle with how popular AI is. But could you imagine that though? Just Chat GPT.
I'm so fascinated by that, Nate, that I almost want to just do that when we're done with the show. Pull it up on my phone. Hey, who's the best teams in college football? That I like low key. Is that Casen? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, I'm trying to see.
Gotcha. That's just the kind of thing that you do. It's like, oh, let me see that right now.
Yeah. So for reference, the I guess if you would apply the BCS system to this year, the rankings would have ended up being Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and FSU.
Right. And the national championship was between Michigan and Washington, which everyone would be like, hey, that's cool. It's a rematch of the 1991, which low key, if Washington and Michigan can both win their games, that would be a really cool championship game, I think. The rematch of, like, I think the 91 championship, the one that Washington won.
All Big Ten championship game.
Yeah. Also, there's also a possibility that Texas and Alabama could just be, it again. On that note, any other thoughts on that? Because I do want to predict what I think is going to happen.
Well, I was just gonna
go
back and say, yeah, it's definitely a very important part to acknowledge the fact that because these decisions are made by humans and not computers, that is where the factors such as, injuries in the potential game come into play. And so that's definitely the I guess you would say downside of the human element. But I think if they want to make it I guess, quote, a bit more fair, they could, maybe have the pool of teams come from a BCS style ranking, and then the committee would seed them the way that they think they should be seeded or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But
how about we do this, guys? How about we predict what's going to happen in the playoff, and then we can talk a broader conversation about some of the bowl games. You guys want to do that?
Yeah.
So anyone want to give a prediction for the playoff of what's going to happen in these games? I don't want to start.
I'll be happy to start.
There we go.
I'll start with the 1-4 Michigan Alabama. I think that one's going to be a closer, low-scoring game because their offenses don't really scream productivity, but with Michigan running the ball at a very effective rate, and we saw what Auburn did to Alabama. If that Alabama defense shows up for Michigan, Michigan's just going to run the ball, control the clock. So that one I could see that one being like, 20s, like in the 20s, like a 27-24, like that kind of a matchup. And I just think Michigan with their running attack is just too much for Alabama to handle unless they fix that and work on it. But haven't been seen, and we saw what Auburn did. So I think Michigan would win that one. The other game, the rematch of the what was it, the Valero Alamo Bowl from last year, that's going to be a shootout in half because both those teams' defenses either show up or they don't, but they also have high-powered offenses. So that one's just going to be a shootout. It could get in the 40s, whatever. I wonder what the over-under is. Hammer the over, unless it's too high.
I have it right in front of me. The over for that game is 63.5.
Okay, maybe not over. Close. But it will be a high-powered offensive attack, and I couldn't pick a winner for that one. But Washington's, Michael Penix is a lefty slinging machine, so I could see Washington winning that one if I had to guess, because Texas can be a over-under, and it's just going to be a close game with a lot of offense. So that's what I think.
So you have the 91 going, and who wins Michigan, Washington?
Michigan's defense is just so good. They're just so good. They've proved it, even though they've played, lesser opponents besides BG, giving them the hardest time. I'll take that as a win in my book. But I just think Michigan's defense is too much. It's just they'll be able to contain them in a better pace than anyone has ever faced against Washington. It's going to suck around here in Columbus for Casen and I. Everyone's going to be down, and we're going to be like, what do you want to do? But I could see Michigan doing it with just the defense that they've had all year.
So, I like that prediction. People also forget that a Bowling Green team with like their third string quarterback gave Michigan a lot of issues. People forget that this year.
And didn't he throw it? Like, didn't JJ throw the most interceptions he's had in a game?
Yeah. Casen, you want to go? You don't have to if you don't want to.
No, I will. Yeah, it's just starting with Michigan, Alabama. I also think it's going to be comparatively lower scoring, but it's a real toss up for me. Because I think that a lot of like what Nate said is that you would think Michigan would win that game, but I like Saban over Harbaugh in this, and so it's just kind of like I don't know. I could see Saban doing some mind tricks to sort of make Harbaugh go crazy in the game, and it's just when you comes to a matchup like this, you think of the coaching matchup, and it's like you give Nick Saban like a month to prepare for Michigan, and I think that's going to be fairly easy. If I remember, I think they played in a bowl game a couple years ago, and they beat Michigan by 40 or something. Like they killed Michigan a couple years ago in a bowl game. But yeah, I'll go Alabama. Because I think that this Alabama team is like surprisingly very hungry. Because if you think about it, Alabama hasn't really done much in the last few years. And so there's a lot of dudes on this roster that don't have natties, that don't really have much credentials to their name because Georgia's been, getting their number. So I think this is a very hungry Alabama team that is going to want to have to, get their get their turn to win a national championship. And so then on the other side with Michigan or with Washington, Texas, yeah, that too. It's just these are two very streaky teams, both offensively and defensively. I mean, the reason Oregon was favored going into that Pac-12 championship game was because Washington's offense has been real unreliable for like the last month. And so people didn't think it was going to show up, but it did. And so Washington's going to have to hope that they can keep that. But it's just, who knows? I would probably go Washington with that, just because I think that Washington has more. Washington, I think, is more reliable in terms of their overall play, offensive and defensive consistency. And so then that would be Alabama, Washington. And I would go, I think this is where it could get ugly, and Washington was going to end up losing by 30.
I like that, man. As both you guys were making your great points, I was just sitting here thinking, yeah, the committee did its job, because both of these games are going to be, I think, amazing to watch. And it's the championship, which is the toss-up, right? I think it could be very similar to last year. I'll go ahead and say this. You guys remember about a year ago when, to wind the clocks back a year, you guys remember when people like David Pollack and others were making comments about how Georgia ran the SEC now, and Nick Saban was on every single one of those panels, and every time they would show him, he was just stone-faced, like the coldest look you've ever seen. It was this season's Alabama team that I was thinking to myself, this is exactly why Saban does what he does, and why this team is. That's why I was saying back in October, I'm like, they're going to steamroll once they actually get to the actual. I mean, it's Roll Tide for a reason, okay? Because when they're on, they're on. And that's why I think everyone just had a collective groan when they made it into the playoff, because everyone has seen this story before. You give Alabama a chance, Saban's going to get them locked in. I also think one of the storylines is, no matter what, that Michigan-Alabama team, part of America is going to see like a supervillain go down. It's like Michigan wins a one-possession game, down goes Saban. It's like, oh, thank God, we're not going to get an Alabama championship. But then Harbaugh's not a liked figure right now either, because of, the stuff that's come out this year. So part of me is going to be like, Alabama, and it's like, oh yeah, even cheating, you still couldn't beat Nick Saban, Nick Harbaugh or whatever. So personally, I won't go too into the X's and O's. I think Alabama would win the chess match, preparation more than anything else. I do think that game is close. Like, I'm talking the way the way Alabama had to beat Auburn close. We're talking last drive, or it's a defensive stop or something like that. On the other side, if you like offense, I think this is going to be a flare, and I give the edge to Washington because I just don't think Texas should be here. It's just one of those things. I think they're on paper, the weakest team out of the four, to be completely honest. And also, Washington won like every game this year by one possession, which shows that their coaching down the stretch in games is very, very good. They look real, like the last 5 minutes, they just come alive and make every smart decision. And that's really solid coaching. And every other game, they just destroyed their opponent. So, and they might have a Heisman winner piloting them at that point. So, and we'll get into that. But going Washington. And then in that game, Alabama beats Washington. I think it's an ugly game. I don't know. I think that it's either that or Washington watches the tape of Texas of how they beat Alabama, right? So that's what I think is going to happen. I don't know. I think that this is a Saban warpath, and it's just one of those things where Alabama doesn't declare it. They don't. They don't make any big spectacle about everything. It's just you look up and they're about to destroy your team, like every Michigan fan is afraid of right now. So, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if nothing else, it is pretty much the Saban revenge tour, because
calling it that.
Saban was like the original person to make it popular to like just make up stuff that your opponents were saying about you, or to make up like, oh, they think we're garbage. Like, Kirby got made fun of for saying that about Georgia, but he learned that from Saban.
Oh, yeah.
Like Saban's been the bulletin board material in the Bama locker room for the last 15 years has just been like random quotes or made up stuff.
That was one of my
real.
favorite things last year. Was it's like it was Georgia, as we talked about Casen when
the
shows always here.
Us.
Yeah, they beat TCU. It's like, yeah, man, no one believed us. Like everyone said that. I'm like, not a soul didn't believe in you guys. Everyone thought you were gonna win this.
You were one the whole year. What do you mean?
Yeah, but like they actually believed it. I'm like, wow,
Right.
They really like brainwashed these guys to really think to play like everyone thought they were going to lose. I don't know.
Or snacking halfway through the national championship. What do you mean?
Yeah, you guys were eating wings in the third quarter up by like 40. Like, what do you mean? Which is still a thing I cannot believe I saw in a national championship game. I mean, that's yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, you guys want to get into the Heisman conversation? Because I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little surprised it's only 3. Give our Heisman finalists here. So you had Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And that's it, right? It's just the 3 of them.
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels is in there? Oh, yeah, he is. So we do have the 4. I'm wrong. So that's good. Not one of those years where you get like 5 or 6. You get like several group of 5 guys who get like the nod at the end of the season. Nothing like that. It's a really strong group, I think. Yeah, thoughts, comments? Anything about the Heisman Trophy in general?
I mean, it's a quarterback competition, pretty much. And I feel like they just threw Marvin Harrison in there just to throw him a bone. But I don't even know.
I think the finalist nomination for Maserati Marv is essentially like an achievement, like a lifetime achievement award type of thing, where it was like, you don't you probably deserved it last year, but not so much this year. So we'll give it to you this one. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting conversation between Bo Nix, Penix, and Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels, I think just today won the AP Player of the Year. Cool. And so that's going to be interesting to note. It's just that's the thing where it's like typically the Heisman has been like the quarterback on the best team or on a playoff team or whatever. And so you have to go back a while to find somebody that was on a mediocre team to be able to win the Heisman, because it's usually been at least somebody in the playoffs.
Well, as we know, as I've said to you guys, and I've said to people who listen and watch our show, is like, I think the Heisman Trophy is obviously not the best. It's not the best player in college football. It's who gets the most media attention. It's like the number one popularity contest, and it's usually not conducive to who's going to be great in the NFL either. But at least historically. But I'll say this: I also think that I've also said for the longest time it would be kind of cool if the Heisman was split into 2 awards, offense and defense, just because. Like, yeah. I just think like we talk about these incredible defenses in college football, and there are dudes that absolutely should get this kind of love. Like they invite them all to New York or wherever it's happening. You know what I mean? And then they announce both. I don't know.
And I'm gonna read at least what the Wikipedia page cites as what it's awarded for.
Okay.
So it says the outstanding college football player whose performance best exhibits the pursuit of excellence with integrity. Winners epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work.
Interesting.
That clearly doesn't apply to some of the winners that we know of, particularly if they go on to get drafted by the Cleveland Browns. But
look at Nate. Look at Nate. Nate just doing. That's exactly what comes to mind. Just the money, Manziel. I will say this: I know who I want to win the Heisman this year. You guys might recall I actually was at Indiana when Michael Penix Jr. was the quarterback. I was there for that one incredible 2020 season, which behind his play, yes, but also Indiana's defense that year was amazing. And he got hurt that season, and he was always kind of in and out, injured. And I remember hearing that he was going to transfer to Washington. This was after I was out of there. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully he gets all that stuff. never in my wildest dreams would I have expected this to be his magnum opus season with Washington to like, and it's no fluke they're here. Like, they're legitimately incredible. Like, very good team, has as good a chance as any to win the national championship. For the story alone, I would love to see that get awarded. I have nothing against anyone else here. I actually love that on our pre-show at our preseason show, friend of the show Matt was so down on Bo Nix, and yet here he is as a Heisman finalist. Here he is. I mean, again, I think
I also was super down on him. I mean,
yeah, he shut you guys up.
Hey,
maybe
look,
not.
I've just been very I've just been, holding his freshman year at Auburn against him and some of the rest of his career there, which, obviously not entirely indicative of his talents and abilities. So,
but that's a very similar story to Penix Jr., is it not? I mean, I don't know, just the transfer location becomes where his own. Jaden Daniels has just been quietly good all year. So I'm made the mistake at the beginning. I'm very happy he made the Heisman finalist. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, what can't be said? I mean, he's probably been the best receiver in college football out of the last 2 seasons or so, but he's not going to win it because it's going to be a quarterback.
If you had to guess, I pulled it up. Going based on receiving yards, where do you think Marvin Harrison stands in all of NCAA?
I bet you're about to tell me like lower than we think.
I'd say like 15.
Okay. What do you think?
I'll go top 10.
He is top 10. He's
okay.
9th. He is 9th.
Okay. Who's the number one?
Number one is Malik Neighbors at LSU with 1,546 receiving yards.
Interesting. Jane Daniels at work there. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Doesn't even have the most touchdowns either. That's Brian Thomas Jr. He has 15.
So are you implying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is here because he's Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yes.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes. It's the name.
I'm still sitting here, but as a Q's alumnus, I'm still like annoyed by that. He didn't play for the Orange, but I get it. Media attention, all that stuff. Go to the better football school. I get that. But no actual vendetta there. I'm just saying. That being said, I mean, who do you guys think is going to win this? Who do you think has the best chance?
So,
unless you have another point, Casen, go ahead.
I think that Jaden Daniels has a really good shot. I mean, like I said, I just looked it up, and yeah, I think the last person to win it that wasn't in the playoff was Lamar when he won it at Louisville in 2016.
Nate is shaking his head.
Who won it last year?
So yeah. I guess Caleb Williams, but
I
don't even consider that because like.
You can't not consider it. Come on.
Well, sorry. Let me rephrase. That not in playoff contention because USC was all like Louisville was like 9-4. Like Louisville was not good.
I get
you know what I mean. Yeah.
There's those weird years like Lamar Jackson and RG3 and
yeah. Anyway, the year Lamar won. He passed for 3,600 yards and rushed for 1,600 yards. Jaden Daniels has 3,800 passing yards and he has 1,100 rushing yards. So it's similar. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I really think that it's just on its head. The story of, Michael Penix might be what trumps it all, and also additional to the fact of like they're in the playoff, and I think that might be the deciding factor on that.
He's been legitimately incredible all year, and like it is one of those situations where he is like he's doing it at a school that we definitely did not see him doing this at. You know what I mean? Testament to coaching and just the whole group over there, but. It would be different if he had gone to an SEC school. I think we would see him a little differently, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, of course he did that at a place like this. He's at Washington. You know what I mean? And it's one of the best teams, if not the best team Washington's ever had. So,
yeah,
I think Michael Penix Jr. will win it. I could see the 2 through 4 though surprising us, honestly. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe Jane Daniels is second, and it's like no one saw that coming. Like everyone thought it was going to be Bo Nix or something. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
I could see it being a close vote, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I think it'll be very split because I know like I just said, the Jane Daniels won the AP Player of the Year, and so it's just like I know there's a lot of people who are going to be voting for him on the have Heisman votes, so it'll be very close, I think, for sure.
Nate?
Yeah, I mean, if just from like just the social media and like obviously can't watch every game, but like I was thinking, yeah, it's Michael Penix in the bag because the story, but he's also bringing a Washington team who hasn't been a power like to a great year. And I mean, he's a lefty. He throws it the greatest ball I've ever seen a lefty throw. But then this morning going into work, I hear on the radio that people are like the 2 radio hosts that I don't think have Heisman votes, but they said it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels. Like, huh? What? Because I just never heard like how great of a season he actually has. And then, looking at his stats, yeah, he didn't throw for the most yards, but he's got 40 touchdowns, 30 passing, 10 rushing, I think. I was a little surprised, and he's got the best QBR. So, I mean, it's going to be hard if you try to go by stats and by storyline, but I mean, I thought for sure it would be Michael Penix.
I mean, he has a 72% completion percentage with a bunch of nobodies. Like,
and I mean, they still they put up points.
I will say this:
who did the past few games? Like,
I think Jane Daniels, if he wins, that'll constitute sort of what you were just talking about, Casen, because LSU hasn't really been in contention for the playoff beyond maybe the week they were going to play Florida State back in September. That was really
it.
If Jaden Daniels ends up winning, ReliaQuest Bowl is going to have the most media attention it's ever had in its existence.
Oh yeah,
because that's the bowl name they're playing in.
They're going to freak. Yeah, everyone's going to freak out. Like, all right, we got the Heisman winner here now. All right.
Oh, upsell. Tickets are hundreds of dollars.
Speaking of that, you guys want to talk about some bowls? And I mean, any might want to throw out there. And we got more to talk about. But I already mentioned Bowling Green, Quick Lane Bowl.
Sink the boat.
That's pretty good.
Let's take a look here. Oh, Scooter's Coffee Frisco Bowl. That's a great name.
That is pretty great.
Famous Toastery. Oh, I just love the names.
Among the New Year's 6 games, I personally I am personally still really interested in the Orange Bowl, just because I think that's going to have a lot of eyeballs on it because who shows up for Georgia and Florida State, but also there's been a lot of scrutiny. I've seen a lot of people say, and I've said, watch what happens between Georgia and Florida State and tell me that Florida State's one of the 4 best teams. I think that could be a closer game than people think. But
what if Florida State doesn't even show up? Thoughts?
They just hang a banner for national champions and just don't show up to the Orange Bowl.
I mean, I think Florida State will have their second stringer who was supposed to play, but then had concussion protocol, so it won't be the third stringer we saw in the championship. So I think it is going to be the second stringer.
That's funny.
But that would be very interesting.
So, the Quick Lane Bowl, I will be in attendance on that one. Bowling Green against Minnesota, so that'll be fun.
I might be there. I don't know yet. I might be. We'll see.
The Arizona Bowl with Toledo and Wyoming. As rivals of Toledo, this is going to be really funny because Wyoming's head coach announced yesterday that he's retiring. And so it's going to be like a legacy game for Wyoming's coach. And so Toledo's going to lose by 50.
They're going to win.
Well, also, it needs to just be said again, another Toledo team, great season, has a completely terrible performance in the MAC championship game and loses, of course. Because this is what
Toledo's
always happens.
Their quarterback.
Water is wet.
Quarterback too. Toledo's quarterback's transferring. So.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be in the bowl game. Yeah, because he's leaving.
Well, he's one of the 11,000 students the transfer
in the portal.
Yeah. I made the comment to someone a couple of days ago that this is essentially just college football free agency now. I mean, that's what this is it not? Oh, yeah. It's literally like, hey, what NIL can you give me? Okay, I'll go there. We'll see.
I think the Verbo Fiesta Bowl will be an interesting one because Group of 5, Liberty, the Flames, again playing Oregon. That'd be something, right?
See, the thing about that is Liberty's really, really good. I kind of wish they were in a bowl game with a New Year's Six opponent that I really think they have a legit shot of winning. They're not going to beat Oregon.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I doubt Bo Nix is going to play in that game.
I doubt it too, but they still shouldn't beat Oregon.
Yeah.
So I mean, they might.
I mean, Oregon's favored by 16 points as of right now. So
yeah. That might. It's probably going to go down if Bo Nix says I'm not playing, but we'll see. Iowa, Tennessee is going to be funny because it's going to be the only game that goes in overtime 0-0. Scoreless.
No, the
final score of that game might be
more.
It's true. Tennessee might win 3-0. That was my thought when I first saw that. I was like, interesting. Ole Miss and Penn State. The reason I find that one interesting is because can't you see that being like an early season? Can't you see that being like an early round playoff game in the 12-team playoff next year? Like, can't you see in Beaver Stadium, which would be wild?
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say, hopefully at Penn State in the cold.
Right. I was sitting here thinking, like, can't you see this 100? Like, say we were doing it, this would 100% be one of those games, right?
It's also going to be interesting with news coming out today about Manny Diaz potentially going to Duke, or at least Duke's focusing on him to be their coach. So Penn State lose their DC.
It sounds like it's as close to final as when he went to Temple. So we'll see.
Total side note. I just wanted to shout out because we mentioned it. You mentioned I think last week, Casen. Shout out former OC at Bowling Green, Sean Lewis, departing Colorado for the head coaching job. He goes to one of the greatest and beautiful cities on earth, San Diego, California, to be the new head coach of the Aztecs.
And as I was hoping and predicted, the offensive coordinator at Kent State, former Bowling Green quarterback Matt Johnson, went to San Diego with him. So
I didn't know that. That is awesome.
I don't know what his job is, but he's some offensive assistant.
QB coach. I think
he got
coach, quarterback coach. So
that man contributed so much to specifically my and Nate's years at Bowling Green.
Sorry, Jason.
So much joy and happiness.
Great moments.
Oh my goodness! Like, several of my favorite sports moments in my entire life revolve around.
That's fine. That's fine. He can go and develop in San Diego before he becomes the next Bowling Green head coach.
No, I'd welcome it. That would be really cool down the road. Let's see. Also, Oregon State, Notre Dame. I'm going to find that interesting just because Notre Dame fell off the face of the earth halfway through the season, as do teams that fall out of playoff contention. And Oregon State's playing with every chip on their shoulder imaginable. Now, but not a head coach,
or quarterback.
Yeah.
So,
because I love that Oregon State got good. I love that for them.
I'm pretty sure Oregon State just promoted a coordinator to the head coach, right?
Did they?
So
I'm sure he's the interim.
I know Boise. I saw Boise promoted the interim to head, but
I think they just promoted the coordinator to be the next head coach.
Okay.
The DC at Oregon State.
Cool.
But we'll see. I mean, I don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback because I don't think Hartman's going to be playing quarterback for the bowl game. But
I have no idea. Like Kellan said, Notre Dame kind of fell off the face of the earth.
I mean, they lost that game at Louisville, like getting destroyed in the second half, and it was like, okay, Notre Dame's out. Yep. Moving on. So there's that. I guess I will shout out. I'm trying to find it here. I'm trying to find the actual bowl game name. Syracuse. Here it is. What's this? The roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl between Syracuse and USF. I'll say that it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Syracuse. I don't want to say that on here. I don't want to claim something. I honestly don't know what their postseason record is right off the top of my head, but I don't know if it's a winning one because I know BG's is not a winning one historically, at least not yet. So anyway, we'll see what Q's team shows up. That'll definitely be one of your interesting throw it on at night right before the holiday, right before Christmas games. So solid enough. Really fun matchup in the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. Yeah.
And that is the MAC champion Miami of Ohio Redhawks against the Appalachian State.
Mountaineers.
Mountaineers.
Go on.
So yeah, Miami's 11-2, and App State's 8-5, and App State I think is favored by 5.5. So yeah, that's tough. That it's a tough look for the MAC on that one.
I'll tell you. Well, speaking of the MAC, I got to tell you, who is a coach that Bowling Green has his number, especially in recent matchups. He goes by the name of PJ Fleck, and I cannot tell you how the boat rowers, of course. We mentioned it here and there. I think first of all, I think the atmosphere there is going to be amazing because Minnesota will show up, and Bowling Green, obviously, we refer to Ford Field as Doyton North. So at least in Nate and I's day, we did. So I think that'll be fun. Like I said, I might go, but I think PG has a really good chance to win that one. So yeah, shout out the alma mater.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. It should be a really fun game.
Definitely. But that is all I wanted to get into as far as bowl games go. We're kind of getting like an hour into this, so I'll leave it up to Casen as far as how much into the NFL he'd like to delve into before of the weeks, because I have a few pretty good of the weeks. And I guess we should probably explain. I even was thinking about this. Nate, of the weeks, like, is half serious, half joking. I know you've listened to the show, so kind of anything we want to highlight, anything. Sometimes we delve out of sports entirely. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're not. But I usually give a few serious ones, at least since football season's been going on. And also, Casen, it's been brought to my attention that it's a thing we should continue. Even after football season.
Yeah.
I was like, that's probably going to happen. You're probably always going to get of the weeks. So, Casen, what thing in the NFL do you want to talk about?
The
AFC North Wheel of Destiny. Sorry.
I want to start with probably the best game of last week, the most offensive output game, and that would be the Chargers against New England.
I knew it was going to be
the Chargers go into Gillette and they win 6-0.
Man, hammer the under. Well, it's funny. By the time this show comes out on Friday, we will have seen the result already. But Thursday Night Football is my Steelers against the Patriots, and I'm sitting here thinking,
it's going to be the same.
What is this? Someone's not going to. Yeah, without Kenny Pickett on one side, it's going to be horrendous, I think.
This game will be over by the time you're hearing this, but it could legitimately end. Yeah, it's going to end in a 0-0 tie, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
You guys know the over under in that one?
I'm gonna legitimately guess like 15.
30.
Okay, half of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last I heard.
So in the Chargers Patriots game, the Chargers were favored by 4.5, and they won, scoring 6 points. they beat the line. That's crazy. That's absurd.
There's one main game I really just kind of want to discuss, and it's because of a thing that Casen said last week. On last week's show, Nate, I should say, Casen said that he thought that the matchup between San Francisco and Philadelphia, that team was probably going to win the Super Bowl. Casen, the Niners went into Philly and destroyed the Eagles.
Yeah.
It was over at halftime almost. It was one of those games in the NFL you just don't see very often, where one team just out behind the woodshed, so to speak.
It's so weird. I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Eagles.
They had that emotional game against Buffalo, which we discussed and broke down, obviously from the Bills' perspective. You made the declaration that they would probably split between San Francisco and Dallas, but it looked like, they put all of their effort into beating Buffalo because they just got destroyed by the Niners. That's all it looked like to me. But sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to see what happens against the Cowboys, but they look like they quit and that game. The Eagles don't seem like the most mentally tough group of people right now, and it's
And they were a week ago they were able to beat the even more mentally weak Buffalo Bills. So
yeah,
just my take. We talked about that a week ago. Anything you want to delve into, Nate? You don't have to. It's up to you.
I mean, it just feels like this year, from like how I viewed it, is like, is there a clear favorite? Is there? Like, I mean, seriously, like
in the NFC, I think you have like. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Because like obviously, it started the year like, 49ers easy, or like Cowboys easy, but then they lose a game that's questionable, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not them, but Eagles has to be right. It has to be the number one team, but then they lose a couple games. Like, in my head, people can keep saying like, the 49ers stacked on defense, but then I'm like, you can't say that at this moment, because you never know, in a couple weeks they could lose, because it's the NFL and anything can happen this year, because it seems like defense reigns supreme. So that's just something that keeps going in my head. Is like, is there a clear favorite right now? Like, anything can happen.
I'll be real with you guys. This is the first year where I would really say that the product of I've always thought the product of the NFL has been pretty poor for a while now, but half the leagues on their backup or third string quarterback at this point. Like, it's like over half the league. I mean, I know injuries happen, but with the season being longer now and everything, it's like I'm not even excited to watch the Steelers play tonight because of the fact Kenny Pickett's not in there. Whether we have a chance or not, they're going to make beating the Patriots look like the most difficult thing on earth. And I don't know. The quality is just not there. And it's like, I'm almost sitting here thinking, if Brock Purdy is able to stay healthy, the Niners will win it, simply because he's the last man standing.
Because that's another good thing. Yeah. They have after Brock Purdy. I mean, I know the offense is easy. It's just dink and dunk science, but like, can you trust that back, like that second string, to do what Purdy can do? But like,
they might have won it last year if Purdy stayed healthy. So they discovered Purdy last year because of their injuries. So yeah. I don't know. That's just the overarching issue I have with the NFL right now. It's like we're watching these no-name dudes. It's a bad situation when they're between backups in like New York with the Jets. You have a situation where, I mean, like you're in a rough spot.
I will say a definite bright spot of the year, not only because I am married to a Detroit Lions fan, but just seeing Detroit do well. It just feels right. Just to see what they've suffered through. It's just good to see, the Lions doing well, the city's enjoying it. We obviously know James is having the time of his life, just seeing a winning product. But I mean, it's definitely good to see them win and to see them play well.
He said right here on this show that, like, in some ways, like how good they are is like utterly incomprehensible. Just because it's like me when the Pirates started doing well. When I was in college, I was like, I've never seen this. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
I don't do my. Also, that has by far been the most feel-good story of the league this year. I don't like, regardless of what they do, it looks like they have a winning core there in Detroit, and I hope they are legit contenders for years. I really genuinely hope that. Sorry to anyone who's an NFC North fan, not a fan of them, but it's a long-suffering fan base, and it would just kind of be cool to see that continue. That was all I had in the league before of the weeks, I should say. Casen, you got anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I'll at least touch on the other two weird games. It was the Sunday night game, the Chiefs Packers. I don't know what the Packers are doing. The Packers might be good. I don't know. That's a little odd to me. And again, then
Kansas City, I think, is not as good. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a different situation. And then the Monday night game, which was Battle of the Backups in overtime. Jake Browning, I guess is the front runner for league MVP now. I don't know.
He's a front runner for a payday. Let me tell you.
The Commanders are going to give him $400 million, aren't they?
Of course.
Well, here in like 3 years, when Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck's, he'll be the guy, right? So
yeah,
that's not a real prediction. I'm just saying we've talked about that on this show before.
Yeah, So, like we said, it was brutal. I mean, Trevor goes down in the game, and you have CJ Beathard come out, and I'll be at the Browns-Jags game on Sunday, and so obviously with the predicament the Browns are in, I am excited to not, to maybe potentially be playing CJ Beathard instead of Trevor Lawrence. But at the same time, that makes the product on the field significantly worse.
Yeah, you're going to run Joe Flacco out there.
Yeah, now we're staring at a Joe Flacco, CJ Beathard game. And it's just like, what is going on here?
This is the league this year. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous.
But also, by the way, it will at least note that Joe Flacco is elite. He's the best quarterback the Browns have had in 15 years.
Wow.
Add it to the list on the jersey.
Add it to the list,
man.
Add it to the list.
Anyway, yeah. So I know we sat here before the season. We were talking about how like the AFC was this gauntlet with all these teams that are so good, and then the NFC has like 3 good teams. I think that's flipped now because half the AFC is on backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like everybody that we thought was going to be good doesn't have a quarterback anymore, and I think almost half the teams that are in the playoffs right now are going to be playing a backup on Sunday. So it's just like this is in the.
If I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm sitting here saying, yeah, and we're not one of them yet.
Yeah,
and it might be one of those things where they make it through and make it to the Super Bowl again simply because, again, last man standing. And it's Mahomes.
Thankfully for Mahomes, the issue with the Chiefs is injuries everywhere else.
Yeah.
I think they lost 2 defensive starters for the season on Sunday. I
think so.
So it's just like that. Like that's brutal. Like that is brutal.
And obviously they got targets who are dropping balls and banged up. So, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Of the week, is it time for of the weeks, Casen?
Sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I know a lot of people love this segment. I need to start with this kind of heralding of what's going to be college football. I need to give a special shout out to soundbite of the week for me goes to trying to get this right. Hang on. Goes to Missouri football head coach Elijah Drinkwitz. I think is how you say his name. And he dropped he dropped the single funniest line of the entire bowl selection show, which I'm sure you saw it. Hopefully you did see it. He's sitting there talking about, the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, we're going to play Ohio State. He's also like the most cool-headed dude. His interviews are really cool. And we said a lot of good things about Missouri on the show this year. He sits there and at the very end, he says what he says. He's like, yeah, I actually got Connor Stallions on the phone here. I'm going to connect with him. And he just sends the entire panel, they all just drop over laughing. It's like, yeah, and they're going to play Ohio State. It's like, I look forward to it. I more or less just could not believe he actually said that. Like on just straight on an interview. I don't know. Joke of the week, but also, wow, soundbite. I was waiting also to talk about Ohio State's matchup in the Cotton Bowl.
Eli Drinkowitz is like a real interesting character that because he was been at Missouri, we haven't really seen much of him, and he's really only super known in like the SEC circles until Mizzou's been really good this year. And so that's been the thing is that that's his personality. And it definitely doesn't land as hard when the team is bad for a while. But since they're really good, it definitely makes the jokes funnier, I think, for the Mizzou fans.
Side note, I think Missouri can win that game against Ohio State.
I mean, Ohio State's gonna be playing backups and third stringers. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's a bigger deal.
It means nothing to Ohio State, and it's Missouri's Super Bowl. So
Connor Stallions is going to help them by giving them all the signals. So this is fine. Yeah. It's going to work out.
I mean, and here's the thing that again, fans need to realize is that I don't know what Drinkwitz is getting paid at Mizzou, but I'm pretty sure Ryan Day probably makes twice that. I'm sure Drinkowitz is probably going to get at least $500,000 for winning this game.
Like that.
So it means more to him.
That it does. So that's it's pretty dope. Any of the weeks from one of you guys? Go on around the horn here.
Casen, you want to go or you won't?
Yeah, I can go. I have my retirement of the week. And and that would be, or sorry, my should be retirement of the week, and that would be Tyler Slow. He was the quarterback at Texas Tech, and before that, Oregon. And he's gonna come back for his seventh or eighth season, I think.
Wow.
And so I think it's transferring. I could be wrong. I think it's transferring like Louisville or something. Yeah. So with the COVID years and other additional like medical red shirts or things like that, these dudes are getting out of control. Like he's gonna be like 26 and still playing football.
Yeah, the COVID year really like made things wild, man. It really.
It's interesting, that COVID year, but yeah.
Nate.
I'm going to go along the lines because when Kellan mentioned his soundbite, it reminded me of something that I read and heard on the radio. And I guess I'd call this one the "Did he really say that?" of the week. And it comes from my second favorite university, Marshall, and their head football coach.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about their quarterback entering the portal. And I quote, someone said, he says this one doesn't come as a surprise. There isn't a lot of money for NIL, and the fans hate him. The kid has been miserable. Wow.
Someone read that in the office, like where I work, and I was like, "Can you read that back, please?"
It's like, did you really say that?
Yeah. Is that a direct quote, or is there going to be like a statement from him in the school?
Is it like that was taken out of context? No, he said that. Wow.
That is scathing, but it's also like, it also shows like coaches do not like the portal when their guys use it. I mean,
you need money to get in it.
Exactly. It's just like you can see what these guys think. Sorry, Nate. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's what it's getting to is you need money to get in it, and you don't want people to go in it.
Facts. Very facts. Staying with a conversation I'd like to hear from Nate about. My shout out to the week goes to my favorite MLS team. I think everyone here's favorite MLS team. And the shirt and hat, right? That Nate is wearing. Nate is rocking the Columbus Crew Soccer Club. Love them very much.
I was gonna say, if we were doing other of the weeks, I was gonna do my feel good moment of the week.
Go ahead.
The week, and it's just the Columbus Crew going down to hell and showing Kentucky FC, aka FCC.
Yeah, look at the hat. Look at that.
And putting them in their place and showing them that we are better.
If I could reach my scarf, I would pull it up. It is like off camera here.
I mean, I remember the game was happening, but it's on Apple TV and I don't have it. So I usually just follow along on Twitter, but I was busy and I just remember I was like, oh wait, they played today. And I just checked and I was like, oh my God, they won. They won 3-2. And then after like learning more of like how the game actually progressed, I was like, oh my God, we went in there and snatched it from them. We pried it out of their hearts and they thought they had everything going. Best team in the year, the whole league and the MVP. No, the Crew are the best in Ohio, will always be, and will never be taken down.
No question.
They're in the MLS Cup.
I can't recommend this app enough, and I've never actually talked about it right here on this show. FootMob, it's the best soccer app like in the world. It's so good. It's free. You should totally download it. My FootMob was going off because obviously one of the teams I follow and get is the Crew. I didn't realize it was like the semis. I for some reason thought there was another game still until like the actual like cup match. I didn't realize that. I'm like, oh, they're in it now. I like when the game ended, I saw that. I was like, oh, cool. So is the next one No, the next one's for the whole thing. Got it.
All the marbles, baby, and it's in Columbus.
It's in Columbus, and it's against LAFC. Is anyone going that you guys know? Or
I know I have coworkers that are going, and I think family.
I think tickets were really hard to get because they were.
I know
that the fan section, the Nordeck, had to like demand that they release more tickets because they like weren't giving out enough. It was I saw on Twitter it was kind of
that is another thing that I will say that I don't know if most people like fans of soccer know, but the MLS Cup final, even though it is at Columbus gets to host it, it doesn't mean that we control, like the Columbus Crew controls the tickets. No, this is all run by MLS.
Right, it would be MLS.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who do the tickets. And yeah, I guess Casen remind me, but I thought I read that like somehow a password got leaked and like a bunch
of so
in.
Essentially, yeah, like somehow a bot came in and like stole all of the tickets, and so they had to like shut it down and restart the ticket sales. So yeah, it was crazy.
Oh god, it was so bad, and all the crew fans were pissed. Like season ticket holders were like, why can't I just get the ticket I've had all year? And like everyone was so mad, and I get it. I understand why. It's just, the MLS sucks.
It's just I think one of my favorite stories of the last like 10 years. I mean, I remember back when we were still kind of blogging, Nate, on and off, when that story about Columbus Crew potentially moving and just seeing what's happened to the new stadium, to the downtown, to having actually been there myself, to now just seeing like, no, one of the founding members of the MLS and still one of the teams controlling a whole league in a very real sense is in Columbus, Ohio, and I love it. So yeah, that's on Saturday at 4 p.m. by the way. So yeah, tune in.
So I really like this is their second MLS Cup appearance in 4 years.
Yeah, it would be their third win, correct?
Yep, it would be their third star. First one in lower.com and the Death Star, however you want to call it.
And so I don't know. I mean, some people are saying, is Jimmy Haslam the best owner in the MLS? Some people are saying,
well, technically it's D. D's the one who's around more often.
Okay. D, yeah. Is D the best owner in the MLS?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me see
but
here.
Anyway,
I have another of the week, but I'll wait. If you guys have it. Our Casen usually has a few.
Yeah. I have my dog of the year.
Okay.
And that goes to not to change the subject, but that goes to the Times Person of the Year, and that would be Travis Kelce's girlfriend, Taylor Swift. Let me just go on and address, like, she, in her article talking about the Person of the Year interview, she went on and detailed the preparation that she went to for her Eras tour. That is some dog of the year preparation.
Oh yeah.
She went on to explain that she would, for the 6 months before her tour started, she would run on the treadmill singing all 44 songs on the set list every day for 6 months. Pretty much. That's insane. That's insane.
Wow. Among other things, I mean, the prep to be able to do that show very many times. That's why I thought it would be cool to see a behind the scenes like of that prep, like what all does it take to it's sort of like what Beyonce is doing with her film, kind of showing the more behind the scenes and all that. Because I know that I've been told that the movie that Taylor came out with was just one of her LA shows. So I think in due time it would be cool to kind of see the behind the scenes there. The one thing I think
there's a lot of theories that there's going to be a separate project that's going to be like a tour movie.
They need to do that.
A documentary. Yeah.
The thing I was going to say was, whenever you're an entertainer and you get Times Person of the Year, it's always Time Magazine Person of the Year. It's always fascinating considering they've done it since 1926 or something. It's rare.
Very rare.
Yeah. And every year I always go back and just kind of see, who it is and what it is. It's just one of those things which everyone should totally go do. You should totally pull it up on Wikipedia and go see, because it's always for better or for worse. And it's just kind of, it puts you back in that time frame of what things were happening, like all the way back in World War II and prior to that. I mean, it's fascinating. So, last year I kind of actually predicted it, and this year I was like, oh, Taylor Swift, that makes sense. So, do you have another one, Casen, or I have another one?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay, so I'm gonna do one here back in sports, and then I have one to finish that's out of sports. In like, how do I put this? In the Hall of Fame finalist and Hall of Fame inductee of the week, giving it to Jim Leyland. I need to sit on here and just talk about Jim Leyland for a bit, just because he's one of me and friend of the show James's favorite icons in sports. Former manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates for 10 years during that 90s golden age is how Pittsburgh remembers him. He's also Florida Marlins, Colorado Rockies, and Detroit Tigers, and he's done incredible everywhere he's gone. I have a lot of reverence with that just because having been to Cooperstown, the Hall of Fame for baseball is the hardest to get into, just the way the process is. And that is the definition of they just don't let everybody in there. And that's which is why it's always like 1 to 2 year. And for like a guy who I saw the very tail end of who's living like that, but to him go in as a manager that like we saw actually do the thing, getting inducted to that Hall of Fame is really cool and almost makes me want to go back. Like I will go back someday, but to see the plaque, you know. So yeah, shout out Jim Leland, one of the greatest baseball managers in the history of the bigs, history of the sport. So, Nate, you got another one?
I do, and I hope I don't steal anybody's thunder here, but I'm gonna go with my biggest balls of the week. Sorry, that's not allowed to be said, but I feel like this person has some cojones. And it goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars former employee who secretly stole more than $22 million from the franchise over 4 years by manipulating his credit card.
Is that how that happened?
Wow.
Because I saw that headline right before we started recording, and I didn't recognize that was the story.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty ballsy.
That's pretty. That's eye opening. That's
now, yeah. So now he's he got fired earlier this year, and they're in court now.
I was gonna say there's clearly charges. This isn't over, right?
Yeah. I believe he got brought up on federal charges. Yeah.
He's gonna go. I mean, hey, I hope he spent the money well during those 4 years, because I don't think he's gonna touch grass ever again.
It's pretty good. That's a pretty good one, Nate. Casey, do you have another one?
Yeah. I mean, I will do lottery of the week, and that goes to the MLB draft lottery.
Yeah.
Of which the Cleveland Guardians won. And they had I don't even know, the 2% chance or something like that of winning the lottery, and they managed to win it. And then number 2 in the draft lottery was the Reds. So equally really low odds to be that high, and they managed to.
I was about to control baseball for a while.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, for a very poor franchise like the Guardians, that's a huge get, because they definitely need whoever. Hopefully they draft well, but they definitely need some talent.
I will say, although I saw a bunch of people like, wow, they got the second pick, that's great. I did see people saying, wow, I can't wait to see who the Guardians draft for the New York Yankees in 7 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Yankees or Mets. Yeah.
As a Pirates fan who has seen them get the number 1 pick and use it like twice in the last 3 years, which I'm happy, because we were pretty bad, in those periods of time. It's still really, really cool, just because the aspect of your team finally, getting someone good. And I've loved their draft picks over the last few years. Most recently, Paul Skeens, is in the Pirates organization. So please work out. And I saw Cincinnati get the number 2. I was like, oh, great. I'm so thrilled to see them in there, number 2.
I mean, that's incredible, though, because the Reds were fairly decent. They already have a lot of really young talent.
They had 0.9%.
So getting the number 2
odds.
pick, that's absurd. Yeah,
it's absurd. Not to and you had Athletics at 4, which I also was like, see that, don't like that. But again, whole separate topic. That franchise, at least the ownership, doesn't deserve to be rewarded for a while.
Don't worry, it's okay. They're going to go to Vegas, and just like every other Vegas team, they're going to be gods. So it's fine. Baseball in Vegas, okay.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the MLB draft lottery has they have factors that come into play where they punish teams for going over a certain salary cap. And if their payroll is so high, they decrease your odds of winning the draft the draft lottery.
That's smart.
I believe that.
I mean that definitely makes a ton of sense.
They've tried to do that. This is a longer conversation, but it's one of the things that they've noted as being one of the things of them trying to do, instead of them putting a floor in for salary, which they need to do in Major League Baseball. But yeah, I mean it makes sense. My final of the week. Actually, I'll give my one, because I've given it every single week. My upset of the week goes to Alabama over Georgia. with my honorable mention going to the Arizona Cardinals over the Pittsburgh Steelers, just because that was just such a deflating. They had to do it through 2 lightning delays too. And it was, but what upset, like, were people talking about the most is always how I do that. Alabama over Georgia, that gets my upset of the week. Out of sports entirely, my how do I preface this? My record-breaking YouTube video of the week. I'm gonna go ahead and just say that goes to Rockstar Games for the trailer of Grand Theft Auto 6. That needs to be mentioned, just because we do have pop culture on this show, and just the fact that trailer, which I was thinking about this, is that the most anticipated video game trailer out of the last 20 years? I actually was really thinking about that.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, like I thought, like, that. I know I'm like, that's not a hype thing. Like, I legitimately think like more people around the globe were anticipating the next like GTA, because
especially because it doesn't come out every year. It's a long process.
Yeah,
they always set up their games to be played for 5 years plus.
5 years plus, and of course the absolute money they've made on GTA 5 just over the last 13 years or whatever it's been. I mean, Nate and I just got to college when 5 came out, something like that. So when it first came out, very first.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like it's been that long ago,
but I just wanted, like, it was amazing to see a video game trailer break every single 24-hour YouTube record that existed immediately. But no, seriously, I just, that right there is incredible, and has to be mentioned. Also, trailer looked really cool. So trailer looks amazing.
Especially all of the like pop culture references they had just from social media itself.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys just created the state of Florida. you get every part of that, and I'll let viewers and listeners just I'll let them just use their imagination. Yeah, go check that out. Anyway, that was my final of the week. If anyone has anyone else to close up with,
I've got one more. I don't know.
There you go.
More, Nate.
I mean, I can, but
okay.
Go.
I tweeted a meme about this yesterday, I think, but I have a sicko of the year. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the sicko committee on Twitter. And so my sicko of the year goes to Iowa punter Tory Taylor. Tory Taylor leads the nation in punting yardage with 4,119 yards and 86 punts total. So he's averaging 47.9 yards per punt. Does anybody want to take a guess as to who the number 2 in total puntage yardage is for the year?
Not even half of that.
It's Navy punter. I want to make sure, Riley Reifman, and he has 3,367.
Dude.
So Tory Taylor is leading the nation in punting yardage by 700 yards.
Good Lord, his legs got to be tired.
Yeah. That's incredible.
That is incredible. That is very
Lord,
man.
So shout out to Brian Ferentz on that one.
Shout out to Brian Ferentz. Shout out to Iowa, man. Making headlines that you just wouldn't believe every single year.
Dude, if Iowa had like Oregon's offense or Washington's like if Iowa had the remote semblance of an offense, they would win a national championship. Like they're
in 10 to 15 plus, maybe even 5 to 10 years in the future, someone should just take the stat line of his punting yards, but just throw it out there and be like, what position do you think this stat line belongs to? Everyone's like, oh, quarterback, gotta be. Nope. Punter. It's a punter.
Let me check that. Yes. So I believe that if you turn those punt yardage numbers that I just read, Tory Taylor would be, I believe, second in the country if you turned him into passing yards as a quarterback. So, yeah,
that is impressive.
That almost could be
only behind Yeah, only behind Michael Penix Jr. So he'd be a little bit ahead of Bo Nix.
Why isn't he in the Heisman consideration? Come on. I mean,
honestly, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Torrey Taylor for Heisman, guys.
If he doesn't win the punter award, then it's rigged.
He's set to break an 85-year-old NCAA record. That's pretty crazy. All right.
Well, I guess that kind of could play into what my last of the week could be, because you mentioned a punter. I'm going to go with a heel of the week, and that's to my guy and Kellan's, Pat McAfee, for his pick.
Oh, yeah. College game day
pick in the history of anything. He starts off with the Georgia chant of, I don't want to say it all because then I'll just get wrapped in it. He does that. Georgia fans love it in the Atlanta Convention Center. And then he just is like, give me Alabama.
To break all the, and then he turns around to break all their hearts.
Just the greatest heel turn I have ever seen. And then he just does the Roll Tide chant, and it was
perfect. And I will also go as far as to say, then makes the pick even better. Alabama backed him up by winning the game. So a pick is always great as long as it's correct.
Yes, exactly. That one just had everything wrapped in one.
Yeah, that's awesome. But was that the end of the weeks?
That was all I had.
That's the last one I
Gotcha. And I'll tell the viewers and listeners as well, like, a lot of the time I'll go in with like a couple on my mind. A lot of the time I have them written down. I didn't need to write them down this go round, but I often with of the weeks, I'm just like, I arrive there as the show unfolds. It's like a lot of fun that way, but that's what we got. That's our agenda for this Friday. Thanks for waiting on this show from us in general, because we did want to give you our opinion on things. Shout out Army Navy. That's going to be this weekend going in by the time you hear this on the Friday. Nate, any final thoughts? Thanks for being with us, man. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate the offer to be a two-timer. I will hold it near and dear to my heart. And as always, it's a pleasure to talk sports and other topics with you fine gentlemen.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll wear a suit next time because I don't want to.
Yeah, like in hindsight, I really am curious to see what people say about Casen's suit. I got to be honest with you.
Great. I love it.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be some similar reactions of, wow, did not think he was taking it there. Shout out Casen for what am I trying to say here? For dress code of the week. Great job, man. Any words? Any speech?
No, I mean, do we want to pick Army Navy real quick before we go?
Go for it.
I got Navy.
I usually pick Navy, so
no.
Guest picker is going to be Bill Belichick, by the way. So
because it's in Foxborough. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll just to save the quote unquote figurative graphic, I'll go Army.
Save the graphic. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, like usual, everybody out there, we thank you so much for watching, listening, however you tune in. We really appreciate the support. And as I've said to some people recently, Casen and I do this for fun. We do this for friends like you, Nate, among other people. And we'll be sure to have you back again. Once again, extending a thank you, and let us know your of the weeks as we say every week. But yeah, this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
This is Nate.
And we'll see you right here at the next stop.